temperatures, 70 degrees this week. Now next in the 60s the next week. So, but don't get comfortable. It did this 33 years ago. We had a blizzard in March.
March is always, if it's gonna be bad, March is the worst month.
According to memo, every 50 years you have a blizzard. So we're about 20 years away, within 20-year mark, of having another blizzard. So
What did you predict?
I don't predict nothing. Chapter 15. We should finish chapter 15 up today. Jesus is spending this time talking to disciples and trying to get them ready for what's to come. And he's pouring all he can into them right now. And so we've talked about the I am statements to just kind of these last, well, he again, if you love, you're going to keep his commandments. And so that gets us down to verse 17. Let's read 16 first. And we'll try to look something up. But just kind of, because we spent several weeks on just kind of chapter 15, and from the Last Supper to the crucifixion, it's only about 20 hours, 15 to 20 hours. I know we spent so long in this, but it was just hours that he is trying to pour all this stuff into him. He knows the end is coming, but he didn't stop. He kept working because he has something to do. And he had when Alex has talked about, raising Gina was, I only had 18 years, and it wasn't enough to teach her everything she needed to know. Jesus only had 3.5 years with them, and it wasn't enough to teach them everything they needed to know. But we'll get that a little bit more here. But verse 16. Ye have not chosen me, but I have chosen you, and ordained you that ye should go and bring forth fruit, and that your fruit should remain, that whatsoever ye shall ask of the Father in my name, he may give it you. These things I command you, that ye love one another. We talked about this a few weeks ago. Love each other as yourself. Very few people, I think, honestly don't like themselves. And it's hard just thinking through you're supposed to treat someone just because you're treating yourself, but we're supposed to. A few verses before that, verse 13, greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. Jesus willingly gave his life for us, because that's how much he loved us. And that's what Jesus referred to back here. Verse 18, if the world hates you, you know that it hated me before it hated you. If you were of the world would love his own. But because ye are not of the world, but I have chosen you out of the world, therefore the world hateth you. Remember, the word that I said to you, the servant is no greater than his Lord. If ye have persecuted me, if they have persecuted me, they will also persecute you. If they have kept my sayings, they will keep yours also. But all these things will they do unto you for my name's sake, because they know not him that sent me. All right, so Jesus is giving a warning. Look, this is what's going to happen. They're going to persecute you because you follow me. But that's not that wasn't anything new. There's a whole Old Testament of people persecuting those who are following God. And there's some big names in there. I'm just going to start throwing out some. No particular order. And Mordecai. What did Mordecai do? He wouldn't bow to Haman when he walked by. All he did. Elijah had a contest with Ahab's priest. We all know the story. They show up, they build their altar, they do all the things, and nothing happens. Elijah goes up, tears down their altar, because their altar was not built. It wasn't built right. If you want God to move, everything has to be put in order. It was put in order. He dug a ditch, filled it full of water, poured water on the wood. Fire came down and licked everything up. Afterward, Jezebel wants Elijah killed. So he has to go into hiding. Jeremiah was beaten, was placed in stocks, which that's the only thing we see on those old shows where the guy's standing there with his head and two arms stuck through the wooden thing. And there's Jeremiah. He was thrown into a waterless Christie, which is a water tank. It's muddy, nasty, thrown in there, and was forgotten about. All he did was he delivered a message of judgment, a message of repentance, and told him that the impending conquest of Babylon. And this is what happened. Micaiah was imprisoned by King Ahab in order to only be fed bread and water because he prophesied not in the favor of Ahab. He asked him a question, he gave him the answer, and he was thrown in prison because of it. Then we get to two pretty heavy hitters. We'll start with Daniel. Daniel was, I say, top 3 in the empire. Maybe second. Pretty prominent position. He had the ear of the emperor. Those below him wanted that seat. And they conspired. And we know how the story went. They conspired. They couldn't find any fault in Daniel. What fault did they find? He prayed 3 times a day. Well, we want his seat. We've got to come up with something. What do? They get the king to set a rule, set a law, and they catch him. And they throw Daniel into the den of lions. All because he was seeking God. And then you have one who did the most miracles similar to Jesus. You have Moses. Think of everything Jesus did. Raised people from the dead. That in itself almost got him stoned. That in itself. They did not appreciate him. I mean, you would raising Lazarus from the dead. You think they'd be shouting glory, be amazed? We're going to kill him and Lazarus. He's just getting out of hand. All the miracles, raising people from the dead, causing the blind to see, causing the lame to walk. How dare he do stuff like this on a Sabbath? All these good things. All these good things. He fed 5,000, fed the 4,000. I mean, he did all these things, and they still persecuted him. Moses. Quick question, can anybody name all the plagues in Egypt? Plagues. They lived through all the 10 plagues, and they got to watch it like a TV show. They're in Goshen. All this stuff is happening outside. The last plague, they had to do some work. They had to paint the door with the lamb's blood. So that happens. It then goes to Pharaoh says, "Get out. We don't want you here no more." To the Egyptians, giving them everything they have on their way out. Here's our goal, just get out of here. Just leave, and giving them, God got them out. Moses at the helm. Get to the Red Sea. Pharaoh changes his mind, pursues after them. They're at the Red Sea. They're grumbling here. They start grumbling. What have you done to us? Send back and see the salvation of the Lord. Red Sea's parts. They walk back. They walk across on dry ground. Their armies come through. Grounds them all. One of the kids, I can't remember which one it was. We were watching one of the kids' little songs, and it has the children of Israel walking through the Red Sea, and there's whales, and they're looking to the left, and there's whales and fish swimming on the edge of the wall. And it's like, that would be, that's absolutely amazing. All this stuff is going on. They can look into the water, they can see stuff. This is dry, right there's water. They go, and this is, sorry, I should give you the Bible version. I got looked up and I didn't get this stuff. But this is Exodus 14 or 17:4. All this stuff has happened. All this stuff has happened. They've seen all these things happen. Moses, we're thirsty. Moses, if you don't give us water, we're going to stone you. Pharisees were so prominent. Well, this is not what Moses did. And that's why Jesus went back and said, you are the sons of those who killed the prophets. They are the ones, their descendants are the ones who threatened to stone Moses because they didn't have any water to drink. Forget all about that. It had rained manna every morning and they had quail to eat in the evening. Forget all that. They didn't have water. And I know we will criticize today's society because we want to be instantly satisfied. It ain't changed much. And I know we get grumpy when we go through McDonald's and they take 15 minutes to get us our order because they ran out of nuggets and we have to go make new nuggets. And we'll grumble because we have to pull up and sit there and wait. It wasn't much different. Children of Israel grumbled because they didn't have water. And then Moses had led them through all this stuff. He hits the rock and they get water. Numbers chapter 14, 1 through 10. It gets a little bit hard. And the spies come back. 2 out of 10, Joshua and Caleb give good reports. Everybody else doesn't. There's giants in the land and we can't take it. Have they been sleepwalking? All these things they've gone through. They got out of Egypt and didn't have to lift a hand, and Egypt was giving them everything and things to get them out of there. Have you ever been around somebody who you wanted to pay to leave? I'll give you $100 if you. I had a customer. They bought some property, and the person they bought the property from said, we got tenants in there, they're trouble, but they're yours now. When you sign the paperwork, they're yours. She said, okay. She walked knocked on the door, hey, introduced herself. Hey, I'm so-and-so, I'm your new landlord, and I'm gonna make you a deal right here. I'll give you 2 months rent to leave and another $500 if you take him with you. Take your roommate with you. She said, what? 2 months rent plus $500 and you take him with you. But you only get the extra $500 if he leaves. She said they were going in 3 days. And she said, I did that. She said, I saved money by doing that. I didn't have to pay an attorney to draw up the paperwork. I didn't have to go to court. Evicting somebody who's in your place, I've had to go through it with some of my dad's business. It's a multi-month process. You go before the judge. Oh, I'm so sorry, we'll pay. Judge said, okay, they said they're going to pay. We'll meet back in another month. Come back the next month. It just got tough. I just can't pay right now, but we're going to pay. Oh, okay, it's okay. You're going to have to go another time span with no pay. And then you get to the third meeting. I just can't pay. I can pay today, though. And the judge looked at me and said, I was like, I don't want the money. I want them out. Okay, you have another 45 days to vacate the premises. It was a 5-month process to get those tenants out. It'd been cheaper and easier for me just to do what that lady did. That's what Egypt did with these people. Get out of here. Here's your stuff. Here's our stuff. Leave. They saw all of these things. And at this point, when those bad reports come back, we had better in Egypt. We're going to pick a new leader, and we're going to go back to Egypt. Do you know how you can tell if someone's not been truly converted? Go read children of Israel. They're 40 years in the wilderness. When things got tough, when things went the way they didn't want it to win, they returned right back to where they were at. They want to go back in prison. They want to go back in prison, work every single day, not telling how good things were fixing going to be. They saw all these things, and God had promised them a land flowing with milk and honey. But because it looked scary, the road there looked scary, they knew what they had in Egypt. Let's just go back to Egypt. And Moses, who led them through all of these things, who sought after God for them, Moses stood in between God and the children of Israel. God saying, I'm going to wipe them out, Moses, and we're going to start afresh with you. And you'll have my promise. And Moses, God, if you do this, the people of the land are going to say, God just took them out of Egypt just to kill them. He stood in between, and they still revolted. Fast forward several thousand years back to Jesus. What he said, heal the blind, turn water into wine, heal the lame, the leprous, raise people from the dead. All these miracles. Taught 12-year-old, it's been a week. Our kids, it has been a week. And they have been asking challenging questions. Friday night was, what's that new body going to be like? You said the new body's coming out of the grave, but then what do we have in heaven when we wake up in heaven after dying? I deferred to Gina. And Gina's looking at me. Do you have anything to say? I was like, you're doing so good. I was like, you started the conversation. You got to finish it now. And these questions come right at bedtime, and you're like, I'm thinking through my chore list: dogs, chickens, doctor the one sick chicken, helping out, and then, good gracious, Alex had to deal with it on the way to the funeral.
Part of it was my fault.
So, and then Friday night, they're like, that's not what Pop said. Pop said this, and Jesus like, well, this is what Pop meant, and this in that's what Pop said. And that, you have that conversation, the innocence of them. Like, okay, this is they're trying to analyze this stuff and figure things out. And we're trying to tell them, like, some things you're not going to figure out. And Gwen doesn't like that answer.
That's right.
Gwen likes
Black and white.
2 + 2 equals 4. I know some of y'all back in the back, Terry Diller taught algebra in high school. Super smart man. He was so smart that when the spaceship Columbia exploded, he wrote them a letter and told them what they did wrong. And they tried to hire him after that. And all he wanted to do is work on race cars, build race cars for dirt track, and teach high school math. But Terry had an equation. And he said, I can prove to you that 1 + 1 equals 3. And he would get he also ambidextrous, so he's using his left hand, and then halfway through the board, he starts working with his right hand. Or no, it's the way around. He started with the right hand and moved to the left hand, that way you could see this side. And he went to work showing you how 1 + 1 can equal 3. And that's kind of sometimes how things work with God. At that surface level, 1 + 1 does not equal 3. But when God's in the mix, sometimes things work out differently. I told Gina, she made the best batch of oatmeal raisin cookies I think she ever made this week. I said, I don't know what you did different. And she said, I don't know either. She said, sometimes it's a little more of something or a little less of something, or it came out just a smidgen second early or a second later. But they were perfect. And if we'll trust in God and just let God work, that's how things will work in our lives. And Jesus is, at this point, look, they're going to persecute you. They're going to persecute you because you're following after me. But don't worry about it. They're not doing it because they dislike you, because they don't like me, and they don't know who sent me. And that's the world today. The church is persecuted. And people persecute the church, and sometimes they don't even realize. Right here, I will come here. People making fun of how a preacher delivers. Well, that's not persecution. Is it not? Because they have a different delivery than somebody else? Sometimes you can't. There's one little preacher, he got happy, he starts waddling like a little penguin. And we talk about how I love how this stuff, but you get someone off in a crowd and they're telling him what he's doing. And so that little thing's, you don't realize it, but that thing will stick in someone's mind. You got to be careful. We talked maybe a month ago, about how the blind man, parents, they called them in. Is this your son? Yes. What happened to him? And the only answer they would give is, well, he's of age, ask him. Because they were afraid they'd be cast out of the temple. And the temple was the center part of life, was the hub. And people were afraid to follow Jesus because they were afraid they would lose their spot in the temple. And if they lost, they got cast out of the temple. You had to depend on the other Jews. No one would buy from them. No one would sell to them. And it basically ruined their lives. The persecution is real. A couple of weeks ago, that crew who burst into the church in the middle of the service, I'm going to tell you, it's not been that long ago that wouldn't have happened. Those older generation folks wouldn't have stood for it. In today's world, they'd be arresting the church people for taking them out of the church. It's just how things have changed. Even the drunks and stuff had respect for the church house. Being persecuted is not always being lined up for being a Christian and being shot. Talking about you, making fun of you. Stuff they did to Jesus. Stuff they did to disciples. Stuff they did for any one of those Old Testament prophets who sought after God. I've not done I did the legwork on this one, but one footnote was talking about how Isaiah was sown in two. Just because he stood for God. That ain't the way to go. But he stood for God. Hopefully, we don't have to go through that. But Jesus said, they're not doing it. If you follow me, you will be persecuted. And it's not because of you. It's because they don't know who sins. And that leads into 22. If I had not come and spoken to them, they had not, let me start over there, sorry. If I had not come and spoken to them, they had not had sin. But now they have no cloak for their sin. He that hateth me hateth my Father also. If I had not done among them the works which none other man did, they had not had sin. But now have they both seen and hated both me and my Father. The analogy I've used of you turn lights on and the roaches run. Jesus came into the world, was the light of the world, and they got to see their wrongdoings. And that's the true reason why they didn't like Jesus. All those prophets I wrote, that's the reason why they didn't like them. It shined light on their sin. It shined light on their sin. Ahab, Jezebel, they didn't like those things. They want to do what they want to do because they were the king and queen. The Pharisees, the high priests, they want to do what they do because they were in those high positions. They had forgotten. I've done a lot of thinking on the steps it took to build the temple and and the steps it took to be that priest going before the Holy of Holies. There was steps involved getting the temple ready. The temple had to be in order. Everything had to be perfect. God laid it out. It had to be a certain way. The high priest, everything had to be perfect. Everything had to be in order so they could go before the Holy of Holies. And I questioned, where were the high priests in Jesus' time? All these steps. Well, we're doing all this stuff. We're doing this. Yeah, we're putting the blood on our earlobe, our right thumb, and our right big toe. We have our garments clean. You're doing all this stuff outwardly, but why are you doing it on the inside? There's a reason why they had bells on the bottom of the ephod. And there's a reason why they had a rope tied to their leg. If the bell stopped ringing, that means that person had done something to offend God. And they had to drag them out with the rope. Some of these ruling parties were in order. Nicodemus. Who was it? Which of the Pharisees came at nighttime? Not Nicodemus. It was Nicodemus, wasn't it? I see him and Zacchaeus. Sorry. Nicodemus. Nicodemus was seeking after God. His place was in order, so when he got heard of Jesus, he went to find out, well, who are you? Some of them were. But some of them didn't have everything in order that they could recognize what Jesus was when he got there. Let's finish up the chapter real quick. But this cometh to pass, that the word might be fulfilled that is written in their law, they hated me without a cause. Psalms 35:19. Let not them that are mine enemies wrongfully rejoice over me, neither let them wink with the eye that hate me without a cause. In Psalm 69:4. They that hate me without a cause are more than the hairs of my head. They that will destroy me, being my enemies wrongfully, are mighty. Did I restore that which I stood not away. Well, let's just stop there. We'll start off with 26 next week, but these folks had zero cause to hate Jesus. Zero cause. And the same with Daniel and Moses. They nitpick stuff with Daniel. And with Moses, this is just not what we're expecting. They were expecting sunshine and rainbows all the way through to the promised land. And there was some adversity. First time, and when adversity hit, they wanted to go back. Same thing with Jesus. Jesus was not what they were expecting. They were expecting Jesus to march in, kick Rome out, and set up that kingdom. Because it wasn't what they expected or what they wanted, they won't accept it. But the problem is, just because it's not what you want doesn't mean it's not what you need. So we'll end there. Thank y'all for being with us. We'll start getting ready for our 11 o'clock service.